This week I found my aspirational blunt rotation.
Okay.
Iron Sheik, Pat Robertson, and the Unabomber. Huh? Are we talking about dead guys? Let's briefly...
It's like your real blunt rotation for you is just 2 cops.
Yeah.
To take you immediately to jail.
It was interesting because the Unabomber, first of all...
Oh, yeah, dead. Yeah.
Dead. Found dead in his jail cell and apparently killed himself.
Really?
Is what they're saying. Yeah, because
Like
he had
87,
He had
right?
like mega cancer. He was 81.
He mailed
81,
himself
yeah.
a bomb.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, not even like the fun way. And then there's, of course, Pat Robertson, who portrayed himself to be a really good guy on TV and was a shithead. And then there's the Iron Sheik, who portrayed himself to be a bad guy. It turns out pretty fucking cool.
His Twitter was so funny. Do you think he was tweeting?
It was not. It was like a cousin of his who had worked at some team or something because they were on all the
I
wrestling.
totally went with the kayfabe and being like, man, he's like the guy from Eve 6. Like he's really coming to town on Twitter.
No, Eve 6 learned everything they knew from Sheiky Baby. Yeah, apparently, it was like some relative of his that was part of a marketing team. It was just like, wouldn't this be funny if we just started tweeting as my uncle or cousin or whatever? And spent his last years as a fucking internet legend.
So funny.
But no, I wanted to mention that guy because he's an interesting cat.
Yeah.
His real name is Khosrow Vaziri.
Okay.
He
a friend whose last name is Vaziri.
Is he Iranian? Is he Persian?
I believe so. I think he's Iran. Don't quote me on that, but he plays in a doom metal band called Yautja.
Okay.
His name is Kahan. He rules.
Yeah. The Iron Sheik is funny because, WWE, all wrestling has this long history of, making these foreign bad guys and stuff like that. And Iron Sheik wasn't just like some Italian guy they said was, Al-Qaeda or whatever. He was legitimately the bodyguard for the Shah of Iran.
Really?
So his career was in shoot wrestling, like Greco-Roman. He got to, I think, like the last level before getting into the Olympics, and then later became a wrestling coach for the United States at one of the colleges here. And he was a shoot badass.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then he got into wrestling because they asked him, like, oh, why did you make this transition? And he said his quote is, I can't eat gold medals.
That's why so many of the MMA guys do pro wrestling.
Yeah.
They make way more money.
Fuck yeah, of course.
And they get hurt the same, but they get way more money.
Yeah, exactly.
See, the Miz can't say some shit like this. He's like, I was on a reality show. I don't know if everyone likes the Miz. Is the Miz good? I don't know. I can't-
It fluctuates. He's kind of hit that level if he's been there so long. People are just like, okay, we respect you, even though,
sure.
But yeah, no, he famously took the title off Bob Backlund in 1983. It really is like the beginning of the modern WWF because Backlund was Vince Sr.'s guy. Okay. And Bob Backlund, by the way, looks like Howdy Doody with a tiny head, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And he had the championship for like thousands of days. And finally, Vince gets the company from his dad and then beats Bob Backlund with Iron Sheik, knowing that he's just going to have Hogan beat him like a month later, but he needs to have a transitional champion, so a good guy's not defeating a good guy.
Now, at the same time, what was Ted Kaczynski doing?
He was
in
living.
83?
Well, he was living in.
Let him explain the wrestling.
No. I mean, I can answer. He was living in his shack in Lincoln, Montana, and it's always that shit with Ted Kaczynski is always funny because he is a fucking stolen valor hermit poser because
He wasn't a true hermit?
He
everyone's
didn't make the bombs.
Dude, he made the bombs, but everyone's like,
that's
oh,
fuck it.
but
He's
everyone's
cool to me.
everyone's fucking point is they're like, oh, he's a hermit. He lived up in the woods and was self-sufficient, blah, blah, blah. And then later in every depiction, it's like, also he rode his homemade bicycle into town. I'm like, well, then there was a road.
Yeah.
He lived on a road. How fucking hermity could he be?
Is that one of the main things people said about him?
Yeah, they
He
were
was
always,
actually completely normal. He was
I
just
thought
a
it was
poser.
that he blew people up. I thought that was the main notable thing
there was-
about the Unabomber. Not the weird place he lived off a damn road. We caught him. He lives off a road.
Yeah, but
Got this motherfucker.
his whole fucking thing was like, you got to be independent from society and blah blah blah. It's like you have an address.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that reality show where all the weird old white men want to do live off the land?
You talking about
shit?
Alone?
No, there's a different one. It's called Mountain Men. It's even sadder. It's every single guy's like an old white man who's like fucking can barely walk. They're like 65 and they're like, I just love it. I love living off the land, and they're eating squirrel meat. It's fucking awful.
Like Winnebago Man.
Yeah, it's worse than that. It's I don't know, man. It's a great show though. You gotta watch it.
Sheik was always shown twirling the Persian clubs, which were 75 pounds each.
Really?
So he had two 75-pound wooden clubs that he would twirl behind his head, and every single wrestler that is ever interviewed about this was like, we all tried it, and everyone basically almost broke their fucking wrist trying to do this shit. Like, dude was jacked as fuck. Vern Gagne tried to pay him to break Hulk Hogan's legs because Vern Gagne wasn't thrilled with Hogan going to WWF. He refused, but he did.
Good guy.
Good guy. He got arrested in 1987 with weed in the car with Hacksaw Jim Duggan when he was feuding with him.
Bad guy.
Yeah.
What? That's the worst thing he ever did.
I know.
2x4 on him?
Yeah. The 2x4 and a fucking,
2x4 joint.
And a nickel bag. Yeah.
Jim Duggan was probably my favorite as a kid.
Dude.
Oh, yeah.
He was cool.
He's a guy with Asperger's. And lumber. I like this guy.
He truly did seem like some guy who had just snapped as opposed to like a construct. You know what I mean? Like he just found the nearest blunt object and ran screaming into a crowded arena.
I love how mental illness was such a theme with all the wrestlers in the 80s. Hey, Junkyard Dog. He tied himself to that pole.
Yeah.
He thinks he's a dog. All right. Ding, ding, fellas.
Coco Beware. He's got a bird. Why? Who cares? Shut up.
Doesn't matter.
Stop thinking so much.
You were either that or you were like the American hero.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I was really like trying to think of more iconic bad guys from that era, and I don't think there is any. Like they had to.
King Kong Bundy was.
Yeah, he's a little late. You know, he's like late 80s. I'm talking like that first wave of Hulkamania. He was one of the first action figures they made. I think they made 5 figures, and one of them was Iron Sheik. Yeah. Like he was that fucking guy.
Yeah.
And then
did he have a tag team partner?
Nikolai Volkov.
Volkov.
Yeah. Which is where his famous catchphrase where he goes,
Russia number 1, Iran number 1, USA.
and then he'd spit on the ground.
Gave him a hawk patooey on the good old US
United States of America.
Wow.
And people, and of course,
I'm sure the crowd did not appreciate
Dude,
that.
it's a guy in the ring with a fucking USSR flag and another guy with the fucking Iranian flag, and not even the real Iranian flag, an Iranian flag where they've just painted the Ayatollah Khomeini's picture in the middle of it.
I'm sure that was a lot of like 12 and 13-year-olds' first time of screaming "fuck you" in front of their parents.
Oh, in Madison Square Garden, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go fuck yourself.
That's okay, Tommy. You could say it towards him.
I was watching on Tubi. They had just have a bunch of old wrestling matches.
Yeah,
and there's one. The original Sheik would bring out a prayer mat to the ring. And then take a long ass time praying to Allah. And these white people were fucking furious.
Oh yeah. That's Ed Farhat, the original Sheik out of Detroit, which is what Iron Sheik got his name from. And also, Iron Sheik gave us the word jabroni.
Oh really?
Yeah,
that was him.
It's him. So Iron Sheik, who
I always thought it was The Rock.
Well, so
me too. Yeah,
The Rock grew up calling this man Uncle Sheiky, like because him and his dad and Iron Sheik were very close. Like Iron Sheik's wife used to babysit The Rock, and so when he broke into the industry, apparently he comes in the locker room.
The Iron Sheik had pulled me aside because, again, he was family, and he said, "Baba, let me tell you something." He said, "You come into the locker room, you sit down, you shut your mouth, you don't say anything, and you just watch and you learn. And then you understand who the good people and who the jabronis."
So, which is fucking awesome advice. It really is. Like when you're in a new situation, just shut your mouth and just kind of observe, and it'll become clear who is good, who's a fucking jabroni.
The jabroni will reveal themselves.
He tried to fight the Ultimate Warrior at a convention, and this is like when he's an old man, which I love. Ultimate Warrior, like
He liked to drink a lot, right?
Fuck
he
yeah,
to hit the sauce.
Not just that. His hangover cure is amazing. His hangover cure was to take a bunch of mushrooms.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hallucinogenic mushrooms.
Yeah, and there was
portobello.
Yeah, portobellos, shiitakes. There was
every time he drank, he would just trip his nuts off.
I think this was just later in life, but he called it Sheiky Baby's medicine. He's like, "Do you have Sheiky Baby's medicine?" And that was part of his payoff was either mushrooms or a shitload of weed, and there was some story where he pulled up to this show and wouldn't get out of the Ford Windstar he was in because he was tripping too hard. And the promoter got in the ring and he was like, Iron Sheik is in the parking lot right now and he's refusing. He tried to do a wrestling angle on him. He's like, he's refusing to wrestle for you people because blah blah blah. And the crowd like surrounded the Ford Windstar, and like the Iron Sheik is just inside just being like, fuck you, fuck you. I'm like, this is the match I want to see.
Licking the glass.
He's negotiating with God. He doesn't have time right now.
I was gonna say,
he's communing with the sparrow.
I don't think I've ever been as hungover as he has been.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
If you're fucking,
That's what I was willing to try to get over it.
Yeah, those are two separate field trips.
If you're so firmly entrenched in hell from being hungover that like you need to open your third eye.
Give me a burrito.
Dude, I can only trip when I'm like have been sober for like weeks. Like I'm very reminded of everyone who loves me.
him and Bruno Sammartino apparently beat up 6 Canadian Football League players in a locker room.
Right on.
Like Bruno was like,
we could do that.
yeah, I mean, you know,
Canadian football.
Bruno was like,
isn't that soccer?
they were they were backstage and Bruno was like, you're not supposed to be back here, and this guy was like, what if I fucking whatever, and they tried to start shit with Bruno, and then Iron Sheik apparently jumped in and they cleaned house. And also I have to mention this, my favorite angle of the early 90s, Sergeant Slaughter, American hero,
Absolutely.
I had his action
becomes
figure, yeah.
he becomes an Iraqi sympathizer during
really?
during the Gulf War in 1991.
That's funny.
And he brings on as his counsel Colonel Mustafa, who is just obviously the Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
They're calling him this for some reason. Even though he's one of the most recognizable men in the fucking company.
He's still got the weird boots.
Yeah. Oh, he's got the loaded boots. Hell yeah. And General Adnan. And Iron Sheik, of course, is from Iran. So this makes no sense because Iran and Iraq, they're at war with each other.
Yeah.
But he, apparently just becomes a Saddam sympathizer. Meanwhile, General Adnan, I looked this up today because I was like, who was the other guy? He literally went to junior high school with Saddam Hussein.
Wow.
And like Saddam Hussein is the guy who encouraged him to bring professional wrestling to Iraq in like 1979. And apparently shows up. This is General Adnan, shows up with Andre the Giant. And before the match, Saddam Hussein goes, if the Giant beats you, I'm going to shoot him.
Wow.
And like shows his piece. And so they get in the ring and Adnan has to turn to Andre the Giant and be like, do the job.
Yeah.
They're gonna shoot you. And so Andre just immediately rolls on his back and lets him pin him. And everyone in the crowd, because the Iraqi guy just won, begins firing into the air. And Andre had to like take cover under the ring because everybody was just shooting. So anyway, wrestling's fun. But anyway, yeah, I had to shout him out, man. Iron Sheik, R.I.P. As-salamu alaykum, brother.